Hello everybody, Zip here, and look what I have for you today. I've got the Huang He. It's a light cruiser, a tier 6, Pan-Asia cruiser, so new nation, really kind of group of nations there, but she's quite the fun little ship, and let's just get right into checking out her armaments here. This ship being a light cruiser, as you can well expect, the armament is correspondingly light. She's got 3 turrets with 2 barrels of 152mm caliber. So that's a little bit on the light side for a cruiser. If we're really honest here, the ship she's going to get compared to the most often is the Grasse, the French cruiser. And they're very similar in a lot of ways, but they're also dissimilar in a lot of ways. Both have 2 3-tube torpedo launchers at the sides. The torpedoes are a little bit larger on the Grasse. Here they're only 533mm, so the damage output is a little bit on the low side. The reload on the guns is 7 seconds. The reload on the torpedo tubes is 40 plus seconds, 41, 42 seconds, something like that. We'll see that in a few moments. The fire percent chance on the guns is pretty decent at 6%, but still not quite as good as the Grasse. So I'm going to be doing a lot of comparisons here with the Grasse in a few moments. But this ship does have an interesting component to the torpedo tubes. She has a ship skill called Torpedo Reload. When activated, this ship skill will actually enable you to fire one of the tubes again right away. So an instant reload to fire the tubes once again at 3,220 damage. Not the highest damage output from the tubes, but if you're in a knife fight with your torpedoes, which are relatively short ranged, being able to launch a second set immediately from the side is quite handy. So the fast reload, or rather instant reload on that ship skill is very useful and does up the ante with this ship for close-in fighting. However, the torpedo range being only around 6 kilometers, less range on the torps than her detection range, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to effectively employ them. Over here you've got a 4 double-barreled anti-aircraft turrets, and then you've got a big patch of anti-aircraft in the middle of the ship here as well, plus little anti-aircraft emplacements scattered throughout. So her anti-aircraft is better than the Grasse and fairly solid. I've been able to shoot down a lot of aircraft with this ship. I still can't break up an incoming attack, but at least I can make them pay for the attack. The premium camouflage for this ship that's available, as you can see, is quite attractive and does give you some of the standard modifications. So the traverse speed is increased, the surface detection is decreased, experience is increased, torpedo range, very importantly, is increased, and that would be the main reason to pick this up, since without that little boost to the range, the ship is that much harder to play torpedo-wise. The other reason to get this camo is the main battery firing range is increased by 4%, bringing you just a nudge over 10 kilometers. So I do recommend the camo if you get this ship. Moving on to equipment, I did try a couple of configurations, but really the one that I found worked the best was definitely the turret traverse, as well as acceleration, as well as the rudder traverse. So the reasoning behind the acceleration is because this ship does have smoke as one of its skills, and if you're employing the smoke and you're trying to maximize your time into smoke by slowing down or stopping, you want to speed back up quickly once that smoke starts to dissipate, so acceleration is worthwhile. I considered going for the camo mod to reduce the surface detection, but even with it in place, your torpedo range is still shorter than the detection range, so you're still going to be spotted before you can launch torpedoes, so not really worth it in the end. For supplies, I opted to improve the reload on both guns and torps, the ship speed, and the concealment a bit. Another good option there would be to go with the improved hit points. Either or, doesn't really matter. I don't ordinarily compare two ships in a review like this, but in this case here, because the DeGrasse and the Huang He perform very similar roles of fleet support, supporting the carriers and battleships from the likes of other cruisers as well as destroyers, both can be very closely compared, and the DeGrasse excels in offensive torpedo attacks as well as overall damage output with her 3 extra barrels. The Huang He's elite bonuses, I think that they're a little bit on the weak side compared to DeGrasse as well. It would be nice to see some bigger numbers there for traverse or reload boost, but it is what it is. So the Huang He is much better in a knife fight scenario if a destroyer is broken through the outer screen and a close-in battle ensues. The Huang He has a better chance of dodging torps as well as getting torps on target with the destroyer. The DeGrasse is much better as both a defensive unit as well as in a pinch, an offensive unit. So if you already have the DeGrasse, I'd say the Huang He is probably not worth buying, but unless you're a collector, of course. But if you don't have the DeGrasse, the Huang He is definitely worth looking at. It is a very fun ship. I do like the maneuverability on it. It's almost destroyer-esque with a better armament. So that aspect of the Huang He is very, very nice. So I do recommend her for that. But if you already have the DeGrasse, you're probably going to regret spending the money on the Huang He. So they're very similar to each other in their overall functionality. Now that that's out of the way, reasons to buy this ship. If you already have the DeGrasse and you're kind of like, yeah, I'd like to still maybe get the ship, what is there that's worth getting the ship for? So besides being a fun ship because of her maneuverability, she does have 3 ship skills. So instant torpedo reload, as I was mentioning before, smokescreen, and hydroacoustic search. So what this adds up to, in addition to the great maneuverability, is a ship that can go up front at the beginning of the battle, find destroyers and kill destroyers so that the heavier cruisers as well as the battleships and carriers up in behind are protected. She's a forward fighting ship. What's nice about the smokescreen is that if you've bitten off more than you can chew, or there's more of the red ships in an area that you thought there would be, the ship can turn around very quickly within a smokescreen and find safety behind an island and just back off gently and find another place to attack from. This makes the ship really good at scouting early on in the game, which was of course her role in real life. She was a scout cruiser. So you can kind of emulate that in one way to play this ship. There's lots of different ways to play this ship. She's quite versatile. But I'm convinced that playing forward scout / destroyer killer is probably the funnest way to play this ship, and the way that I've been playing it and quite enjoying the ship. So if you're a DeGrasse owner already and you were looking for an excuse, I'd say that's probably the excuse. The DeGrasse is more of a midfield ship, whereas this is more of an upfront ship, twisting and turning, dodging torps, and trying to take out destroyers as quickly as possible for your team, which is both challenging and fun, and the key reason to get this ship if you've already got the DeGrasse, as I was mentioning before. So moving on to actual negative things about this ship. She's of course lightly armored, being a light cruiser, so she does not take a lot of damage. You have to rely on your maneuverability and your ability to hide in your smokescreen, which right now with the current ship skills bug that's ongoing in the game with the recent introduction of this ship, your ship skills actually go down whenever somebody else in the game, in the battle, uses a ship skill, so yours goes down as well even though you're not using it, and you have to wait for theirs to cool down before you have access to your own ship skill again, which is really frustrating. So that's going to be fixed in a couple of days apparently, and I'm not going to really approach it any more than just mentioning it. That's what you're seeing in this video when you see my ship skills drop down on their own. when I'm not using them, that's what's happening. So once this is fixed, it won't be an issue anymore. I really wouldn't worry about that. It's not something to do with the ship. It's not a problem with the ship. It's a problem with a bug introduced in a recent update that introduced the ship to the game. So don't be concerned about that. It likely, if you're buying the ship in a couple days, won't even be an issue. If you're playing actively in the game, you're already aware of this issue most likely. Now I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about the guns a little bit. The guns are 152 millimeter, fairly rapid firing. They have a little bit of an arc to them, but they're very accurate. And although the fire chance is low, because of the high rate of fire, you tend to light fires pretty frequently with this ship. So much like the Grass, she can actually start fires quite often, and she can harass larger ships with her fire starting abilities. So that's an added bonus, and if it's you in endgame with a battleship, you can certainly harass them at range with starting fires, but the better tactic is to use islands and smokescreen to approach and pepper the target with torpedoes. So using the ship's skill, if you've saved it, if you're going to have a presence of mind to save it for battleships later on in the match, then you can deliver up to 9 torpedoes in a short period of time, 3 from one side, 3 from the other side, then ship skill to release another 3 from one or the other side. So this way you can get a good amount of firepower onto target to deal with battleships. But if you don't have a smoke screen and you attempt this, it can be dicey and you probably won't survive. It's more of a kamikaze run at that point if you don't have a distracted enemy or a smoke screen to hide behind when you're attempting to launch your torpedoes. So you just saw me there use my ship skill to get 6 off to one side, and if the battleship in question was still higher health and those 6 weren't enough, I could have quickly turned and release the other 3 right here if necessary. So in this battle it wasn't necessary to take them out, to fire those torps at that battleship, but here I can fire the torps towards this pursuing destroyer and bring the guns to bear, which is easy for the most part to do. However, the ship can maneuver hard enough that you can actually move beyond the turret traverse on the guns and wind up having to direct the ship to get the guns back on target a little bit. So it's a minor annoyance. It's not that big of a deal. I'm just mentioning it because for some people that will be a deal breaker if they have to fiddle with the guns to get them on target a little bit, because the traverse speed isn't quite up to the same level as the ship's traverse speed. So one way to remedy this would be to leave off the acceleration boost, which I think would be a mistake, and put the 10% on in place of the 15% for the traverse boost. But I'd recommend leaving the acceleration on, because if you're using the smoke screens, I think it's critical to have that acceleration to get moving again if you've been slowing down for the smoke screen, to maximize your time with it. The 15% traverse boost, you can leave that off and put the speed boost in place, and then when you're turning, your guns will be more in line with your turn rate, so it'll be they'll be lined up more often without having to jig it back into place a little bit. But again, if you're fighting in close with the ship, I'd recommend against that. If you're playing more of a mid-range rather, to distant battle style with the ship, then yes, you could totally do that. Go with the speed, and then your maneuvering will be lined up with the gun traverse speed, so this way it's not so bad. But if you're going to play the ship up close, I highly recommend the configuration I have with the ship, to just from a survivability standpoint. That extra little bit of jigging that you have to do to get the guns on target, you don't even realize it after you've been doing it for a little bit, so I really wouldn't worry about that too much. So at this point in this review, I'm going to ask myself my usual question: what would I do if my account got wiped out and I was faced with buying this ship again? Would I buy this ship again? The answer is yes. Would I buy this ship if I bought the Grass first? Yes, I would, because although both perform similar roles, you can play the ship differently than the DeGrasse. DeGrasse is more of mid-level. This is more capable of close in. If you plan on playing this ship mid-level, you're probably not going to see much of a reason to have this ship if you already have the DeGrasse. So I'd say for myself, for my play style, for the way I play this ship, I definitely would get it again, even if I already had the DeGrasse. If I had to choose one or the other, I would get the DeGrasse. I think its fire ability, as well as its overall rate of fire on the guns and its longer range torps, make it a better carry ship than this ship, but not quite as fun as this ship. So as a performance machine, I'd go with the DeGrasse for the laughs, and if you're okay with a sudden death on your own part because you turned left when you should have turned right, and those types of situations, then you're not going to go ballistic or insane or upset with yourself for having made a mistake, which can happen when you're fighting close in. Then I'd say the Huang He is certainly should still be on the radar for purchase. But for myself, I would buy this ship even if I had both in my harbor, and I would do so again because I'm having a blast with it. I think that the skills, the overall package. Now, again, if I played this ship like I played the DeGrasse, I wouldn't get anything else, anything new out of this ship. In fact, I'd find it more frustrating because of the shorter range torpedoes. It wouldn't be a viable offensive weapon. But because I'm playing in close, knife fighting up front, I find she's just fun and worth having. So that's it. So don't buy the ship and say, oh, I much prefer the DeGrasse, and even for close in. It really is going to depend a lot on individual play style. This video review is going to be a little bit longer than my other ones because I wanted to include 3 full matches like I normally do, but I ran a little bit long on the front end, so I debated whether or not I was just going to leave it to 2 battles, but I decided to leave the 3rd battle in because I really think it's important that people see the ship in battle and try to decide from that whether or not it's going to be a play style that they'll enjoy. Because it's too easy to buy a ship on spec watching somebody else play it. I want you to look at my play style, the way I'm playing it, and there's a lot of better players than I am out there, so I'm sure they can play this ship much more effectively, much more aggressively than I do. But I think that this is the right way to play the ship, the way I've played it here in these 3 battles. And because of that, I think that if you can play this style successfully with destroyers, for instance, or in other ships, then I think you'll have no problem with this ship, and you'll quite enjoy it. I do think that to get the most from the ship, playstyle wise, this is the right way to play the ship. Otherwise, if you already have the DeGrasse, you'd probably be bored. If you don't have the DeGrasse, then this could be your mid-range support cruiser that you could use when you're teamed up with people, or you're playing a ranked battle and everybody's working together towards the win. So support ship and a destroyer hunter, that's the way to play this ship. And I'm going to leave it here. I think I've said everything that needs to be said about this ship, and if you want to stop watching here, you certainly can. There's not going to be any new information presented after I'm done speaking here, but I'd recommend just watching the videos just to be 100% sure before you drop the coin, the cash on buying this ship, because if you're going to buy the ship, there's also the camo to consider, because the camo does not come with the ship when you're buying it from the tech tree. So do keep that in mind. Make sure you watch that gameplay and decide if it's worth the money to you. Don't buy this ship for credits. The credit system is still broken as of making this video. We've gotten a little tiny sliver of a boost, barely perceptible. There's huge problems with the economy. I've decided I'm going to make a video on earning silver in this economy we have right now. Going by what I've been reading on the Discord server, I suspect that we're going to have a weak economy for some time. The developers are only going to make small incremental adjustments, which means that it could be months before the economy improves, which is not what everybody was hoping for with the last update. And there's going to be a lot of angry players. There already is a lot of angry players. And so I'm going to just try making a video coming up shortly, probably released same week that I'm releasing this video, on how to earn silver in the current economy a little bit more effectively, as well as try my best not to rant and rave about the state of the economy. Try to take a positive note on how to deal with it. I wish it were better. We're probably not going to have a overnight change, it seems, so we'll have to make do with what we got, and I'll provide tips on how to do that, as well as suggestions on how people can let Wargaming know that they'd like a faster resolution to fixing the economy, put it on the front burner a little bit more. But anyway, we'll get to that in the other video. For now, thanks for watching. Have fun out there.
Team captured the area. Good job. Target hit! Nice shot! Enemy team captured the area. We hit the enemy! Target hit! Enemy torpedo spotted! Good job! Our team is about to win! Torpedoes! Nice shot! Enemy ship destroyed.
Good job!
Good job! Our team captured the area!